Reed Trent was racing through the rain to catch the bus that would take her to her interview. But just one block away, she suddenly spotted a man in a wheelchair stuck on a broken curb as a delivery van backed straight toward him. Without hesitation, Reed ran over and shoved his wheelchair out of harm's way. But in doing so, she missed her only bus. With no money for taxi, Reed ran through the storm, eventually arriving nearly an hour late, and was rejected on sight. What she didn't know was this: the man she saved was the cold, demanding billionaire she was about to interview. And when he discovered what happened, everything in Reed's life began to shift in ways she never imagined. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing your stories. The rain came down in sheets that Tuesday morning in Jacksonville, turning the sidewalks into rivers and the streets into chaos. Reed Trent walked quickly down Riverside Avenue, her worn sneakers splashing through puddles, her portfolio clutched against her chest underneath her jacket. Water soaked through everything anyway: her blazer, her blouse, the resume she'd printed at the library yesterday using the last of her print credits. She was going to make it. With 20 minutes to spare if the bus came on time. The bus stop was just ahead, 2 blocks. Her interview was at 9:30 and the 8:45 bus would get her there by 9:15. 15 minutes to dry off in a bathroom, to fix her hair, to look like someone worth hiring instead of someone drowning in desperation. Reed was 28 years old, black, tired in ways that went beyond physical exhaustion, and absolutely desperate for anything to go right. Just once. This was interview number 18. 18 times she'd put on this same navy blazer, printed out her resume, practiced answers in front of her bathroom mirror while her daughter Sadie ate cereal and got ready for school. 18 times she'd heard those soul-crushing words: "We'll be in touch," or "We've decided to go with another candidate," or simply silence, rejection by absence rather than acknowledgement. This time had to be different. This time had to work. She was a block and a half from the bus stop when she saw him. The man in the wheelchair was stuck, one wheel caught in the gap where the sidewalk had buckled and separated, creating a lip several inches high. He was trying to rock himself free, but the rain had made everything slick and his hands kept slipping on the wet rims. His electric wheelchair's motor whined uselessly, the wheel spinning without traction. Behind him, the sidewalk sloped toward the street. If he shifted his weight wrong, if the wheelchair tilted backward, he'd roll into the flooded gutter where water was rushing past ankle deep. Reed slowed, watching. Someone else would help. Someone with a car, someone with time, someone who wasn't about to miss the most important bus of their life. But the sidewalk was empty except for them, and the wheelchair was starting to tilt. Reed looked at the bus stop, 1 block away. She could see people gathering under the shelter. The bus would arrive in maybe 5 minutes. If she kept walking, if she just kept going, she'd make it with time to spare. The wheelchair tilted further, the man's hands were slipping. If he went over, he'd end up in that rushing water, maybe injured, definitely in danger. Her mama's voice came to her, clear as a bell: "Baby, you look yourself in the mirror every morning. Make sure you can live with who you see." Reed ran toward the man. "Sir, hold still." She dropped her portfolio on the wet sidewalk and assessed the situation quickly. The front wheels were caught on the lip. She needed to push from behind to get momentum, change the angle. "I don't need help," the man said, his voice tight with frustration. "Your wheel is stuck and you're about to tip backward into the gutter. I'm going to push from behind on 3. You steer straight ahead and give it gas when I say 1, 2, 3. Reed planted her feet and pushed hard against the back of the wheelchair, throwing her full weight into it. The chair was heavy, the motor alone probably weighed 80 pounds plus the man, but momentum was on her side. The wheelchair rocked forward, the front wheels popped over the lip, and the man engaged the motor immediately, pulling away onto level ground. Reed stood there gasping, her arms shaking from the exertion, rain streaming down her face. The man turned his wheelchair to face her. White guy, maybe mid-30s, expensive rain jacket, dark hair plastered to his head. Sharp features behind glasses covered in water droplets. "Thank you," he said, his voice clipped. "I appreciate the assistance." Reed was already backing away, her eyes darting to the bus stop. The bus was pulling up. "Right now. You're welcome, glad you're okay." The words tumbled out as she turned and ran. She grabbed her soaked portfolio and sprinted toward the bus stop, her lungs burning, legs pumping. The bus doors were opening. People were boarding. She was half a block away. Wait, she was screaming it, waving her arms, but the rain swallowed her voice. The last person boarded. The doors closed. The bus pulled away. Reed stood there in the rain, watching her chance disappear down Riverside Avenue, and felt something break inside her chest. Next bus was 42 minutes away. She'd checked the schedule obsessively last night. 42 minutes meant arriving at 10:27, nearly an hour late. Impossible. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and opened her mobile banking app. $6.37. She'd been saving it for Sadie's school lunch later this week. A rideshare to 327 Riverside Avenue would cost at least $12, probably $15 with surge pricing in the rain. She didn't have $12. She didn't have anything. Reed looked back, but the man in the wheelchair was already gone, disappeared around a corner or into a building. Not that it mattered. What was she going to do? Chase him down and beg a stranger for money? She'd helped him. That was done. He didn't owe her anything. She looked at her phone again. 327 Riverside Avenue. 4.1 miles from here. She couldn't run it. She wasn't a runner. Even walking fast, maintaining maybe a 17 or 18-minute mile pace, it would take her over 70 minutes. She'd arrive well after 10:30. Impossibly, devastatingly late, but it was the only option she had. Reed started walking as fast as her legs could carry her. Mile 1 left Reed breathing hard, pushing herself into a fast walk that broke into a shaky jog whenever her body allowed it. The rain didn't ease for a second. Her blazer clung to her like a soaked blanket, every step heavier than the last. Her cheap flats slipped on the pavement, and she could already feel the sting of blisters forming. By a mile and a half her portfolio gave up before she did. The folder dissolved in the rain, the resumes inside turning to pulp. She tried to rescue what she could, shoving wet pages into her jacket, watching ink bleed into nothing. By mile 2, reality forced her to drop the ruined mess into a trash can. Carrying dead weight was slowing her down. Her phone buzzed. Mrs. Chen, I get Sadie at 3 p.m. today. Yes. Good luck your interview. Reed replied with numb fingers. Yes, thank you so much. Mile 3 hit her like a wall. Her legs burned. Her feet felt flayed. Rain and tears ran together, her vision blurring with exhaustion, fear, and everything she'd been holding together for months. She thought about Sadie asking for chicken last night, and how she'd had to say no because chicken was $3 more than pasta. She thought about the eviction notice, 30 days to come up with $800. She thought about interview 17, and the hiring manager who'd said, 3 years is a long time out of the workforce, with that tone that meant you're already dismissed. All of it pressed down on her, pushing her forward even when her body begged her to quit. At mile 3.7 she staggered. Had to brace herself against a building just to stay upright. Her chest heaved, her heart pounded too fast. She knew she was pushing beyond what she had in her. 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes to breathe. She checked her phone. 10:03, 4/10 of a mile to go. Reed forced her body forward. One step. Then another. Rain soaking her, feet screaming, lungs burning, but she kept moving. Because stopping wasn't an option, not anymore. She finally pushed through the doors of 327 Riverside at 10:19, 49 minutes late. The lobby was elegant, marble floors, expensive art, the kind of space that announced success and exclusivity. And Reed looked like she'd been dragged through a flood. Water dripped from her clothes onto the polished marble. Her hair was plastered to her skull. Mascara ran down her face in black streaks. She had no portfolio, no materials, nothing. Her shoes left wet prints across the expensive floor. A woman with silver hair and sharp eyes looked up from the reception desk. Her expression went from professional neutrality to barely concealed alarm. May I help you? Reed Trent. Reed gasped, still trying to catch her breath. I was supposed to have an interview at 9:30. I know I'm very late, Miss Trent. The woman's voice was carefully controlled. Your interview time was 49 minutes ago. I know, I'm so sorry. There was an emergency, someone needed help, and I missed my bus, Miss Trent. The woman stood, creating distance. More Innovations has very high standards for our employees. This includes punctuality and professional presentation. I'm afraid. Her eyes traveled over Reed's appearance with obvious distaste. I'm afraid this doesn't meet our expectations. Reed felt the words like physical blows. Please, I understand how I look, but I walked here, over 4 miles in the rain, because I didn't have money for transportation and I needed this interview. Doesn't that show something? Doesn't that show determination, commitment? What it shows, Miss Trent, is poor planning and an inability to manage your time appropriately. A qualified candidate would have arranged reliable transportation, would have planned for contingencies, would have arrived on time and properly dressed. The woman's voice was cool, final. We've already interviewed other candidates who demonstrated those capabilities. I'm sorry you came all this way, but more innovations won't be moving forward with your application. Can I reschedule? Please, give me one more chance. I'll prove I'm qualified. That won't be necessary. We have strong candidates already in our pipeline. I'll note that you arrived, but I won't be recommending further consideration. The rejection was absolute. Reed could see it in the woman's face, in her posture, in the way she'd already mentally dismissed Reed as not worth her time. I understand, Reed said quietly, her voice breaking. Thank you. She turned toward the door, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall here, in front of this woman who'd already decided Reed was worthless. She'd given up everything to help a stranger. She'd walked 4 miles in the rain. She'd destroyed her body trying to get here. And it had been for nothing. The man she'd helped hadn't cared. The universe hadn't cared. No one cared that she'd tried to do the right thing. Kindness hadn't mattered at all. Reed was 3 steps from the door when the elevator chimed behind her. Judith, I need the Henderson financial reference check results. Reed's body went rigid. She knew that voice. She turned around slowly, already knowing what she'd see but unable to believe it. The man from the wheelchair was rolling out of the elevator, head down, focused on a tablet. He was in dry clothes now, expensive button-down, perfectly professional. His hair was neat. He looked like he belonged in this space in a way Reed clearly didn't. The same man whose wheelchair she'd freed. The same man she'd helped 90 minutes ago. He looked up and stopped moving. His eyes met hers, and Reed watched recognition dawn across his face, watched him process what he was seeing. The woman who'd helped him, standing here soaking wet and destroyed, and clearly being rejected. For a long moment, nobody spoke. You, the man said quietly, his expression complicated, surprise and calculation and something that might have been guilt. You, Reed's voice was flat, hollow with betrayal. Not because he owed her anything, but because the universe had just revealed exactly how cruel it could be. She'd helped this man, this specific man, and it hadn't mattered at all. Judith, this is the 9:30 interview. His eyes never left Reed's face. Yes sir, Mr. Moore. Reed Trent. She arrived at 10:19. I've explained that we won't be moving forward. Cancel my 10:30, Felix Moore said, his voice quiet but absolute. Miss Trent, my office. Now. Sir, I really don't think. I said now. He turned his wheelchair toward the elevator. Are you coming, Miss Trent? Reed's brain was struggling to process. I don't understand. You don't have to understand. You have to get in the elevator. His voice was hard, leaving no room for argument. Reed followed in a daze, her wet shoes squeaking, leaving a trail of water across the expensive floor. The elevator doors closed, sealing them together in silence that felt suffocating. Felix was staring at the panel, his jaw tight, his hands gripping the wheelchair rims with visible tension. You walked, he said finally. 4 miles, in the rain. Yes, because you missed your bus, helping me. Yes, and you showed up anyway. Nearly an hour late, looking he gestured at her appearance, like this, because you needed this interview that badly. Reed felt something hot and painful rising in her chest, anger maybe, or just exhaustion. Yes, I walked 4 miles because I didn't have money for a ride, and I'm 7 months unemployed, and my daughter and I are getting evicted in 30 days, and I've been rejected 18 times, and I'm desperate. And I stopped to help you because you were in danger, and I'm not the kind of person who walks past someone who needs help, even when it costs me everything. Even when it means arriving late and looking like a disaster and getting rejected for not being professional enough. The elevator doors opened. Felix wheeled out without responding. Reed followed, anger giving her energy her body didn't actually have. His office was floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture, everything positioned for wheelchair access, success in every detail. "Sit," Felix said. Reed sat, water pooling beneath her chair, and waited. She was too exhausted to be nervous, too defeated to care anymore. Felix positioned himself behind his desk and was quiet for a long moment, studying her with an intensity that made Reed want to look away. "I need to explain something before we continue," he said finally. "What happened this morning? I didn't know where you were going, didn't know you were on your way to an interview, didn't know you missed your bus helping me, you just appeared, helped me, and ran off. I had no context, I know. I'm not blaming you for anything." Reed's voice was flat. "You didn't owe me anything. I helped you, you thanked me, that was it. The fact that you turned out to be my interviewer is just," she laughed, a bitter sound. "It's just the universe being cruel, showing me that even when I do the right thing, even when I help someone who turns out to be in a position to help me back, it still doesn't matter, because I showed up late and soaking wet and looking unprofessional, so I don't deserve consideration anyway. Is that what you think?" Felix's voice was sharp. "That you don't deserve consideration? That's what your receptionist told me, in professional language, but yes, that's exactly what she told me." Felix was quiet for another moment, something complicated moving across his expression. "Let me be very clear about something, Miss Trent." Judith was following standard protocol. "We have standards for our interviews, punctuality, presentation, professional materials. Those standards exist for good reasons. They filter out people who aren't serious, who aren't prepared, who won't meet the demands of this job." Judith was doing exactly what I've trained her to do. "I understand." Reed started to stand. "So there's no point. Sit down. I'm not finished." Felix's voice was command, not request. Judith was following protocol. "But protocol doesn't account for extraordinary circumstances. And what you did this morning, walking 4 miles in the rain, after helping me, showing up anyway, even though you knew you looked like a disaster, that's extraordinary." Reed sat back down slowly, not quite believing what she was hearing. "I'm going to ask you questions now," Felix continued, "and I need honest answers, not interview answers. The truth. Can you do that?" "Yes." "You've been unemployed for 7 months. Why?" The question that had ended every interview. Reed was so tired of softening it, of trying to make her situation sound less desperate than it was. "Because I'm a single mother with a 7-year-old and no college degree. Because I have a 3-year gap in my work history from taking care of my dying mother while raising a toddler. Because I can't work unpredictable hours without childcare, I can't afford. Because every employer sees single mother with no degree and work gaps and decides I'm too much risk, too much complication." She met his eyes. "And because I'm black, and I'm a woman, and I don't have an impressive resume, and people won't say that's why they're rejecting me, but I can see it in their faces. I'm not what they picture when they imagine a successful employee." Felix didn't flinch. "What makes you think you can do this job?" "Because I managed 3 executives at Henderson Financial for 3 years before my mother got sick. I kept complex schedules organized, handled sensitive information, solved problems before they became crises. I'm detail-oriented and I work fast, and I don't panic when things go wrong." Reed's voice was getting stronger. "And because I just walked 4 miles in the rain and still showed up to demand consideration even though I look like a disaster. I don't know if that's qualification or just stubbornness, but it's all I have." Something shifted in Felix's expression, not warmth, but recognition. "This job is difficult. My last 2 assistants quit, one after 3 weeks, one after 5 days. I'm demanding. I expect anticipation, not just reaction. I have high standards most people can't meet. I'm also in chronic pain from my spinal injury, which means some days I'm going to be short-tempered and difficult. These are facts. Can you handle that?" Reed thought about 7 months of rejection, about the eviction notice, about Sadie asking for chicken and having to say no, about walking 4 miles in the rain. "Mr. Moore, I've been handling impossible for 7 months. Your bad days don't scare me. Your standards don't scare me. What scares me is going home to my daughter and telling her I failed again. What scares me is ending up on the street, because I couldn't get one person to give me a chance. If you're offering me that chance, I'll prove I deserve it. That's all I can promise." Silence stretched between them. Felix closed his laptop. "The pay is $48,000 a year, that's market rate for this position in Jacksonville. Health insurance starts after 90 days. This is a trial period of 3 months. At the end of 3 months, we'll both evaluate whether it's working. If it is, you move to permanent status with a raise to $52,000 and additional benefits. If not, we part ways professionally with 2 weeks severance. That's fair to both of us." Reed's mind went blank. You're offering me the job. I'm offering you a 3-month trial. If you prove yourself, it becomes permanent. If not, we both move on. Do you want it?" "Yes." The word burst out of her. "Yes, I want it. You start Monday. That gives you time to arrange childcare, get appropriate work clothes, prepare. Judith will send onboarding paperwork today. Monday at 8:30 sharp, we'll spend the first week training. Monday." Reed's voice was faint. "I thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. Monday is when the work starts, and Miss Trent." Felix pulled out his wallet and extracted several bills. $100. That's compensation for damages, your destroyed portfolio, materials, shoes that are clearly ruined, transportation costs you incurred. This isn't charity, it's compensation for losses you sustained in a situation where you provided assistance. Take it." Reed stared at the money. "I can't." "Yes, you can. You helped me when you didn't have to. It cost you something tangible. I'm compensating you for that cost. Take the money, Miss Trent. Get what you need for Monday." Reed took the bills with shaking hands. "Thank you. Don't be late Monday. And don't arrive looking like you've been through a flood." "Understood." "Understood." Reed stood outside, 327 Riverside. 15 minutes later, the sun finally breaking through clouds. She had $100 in her pocket, more money than she'd held at once in months. She had a job starting Monday. She had 4 days to completely rearrange her life around this improbable opportunity. She pulled out her phone and called Mrs. Chen. "Reed, how did interview go?" "I got it." Reed's voice cracked. "I got the job. But Mrs. Chen, I need your help. I need Sadie watched every day after school until 6. I can pay you," she calculated quickly, $50 a week starting in 2 weeks when I get my first paycheck. And I'll keep helping with your groceries and cleaning. Would that work? "Oh honey, congratulations." Yes, of course. Sadie is wonderful child, no trouble. We work out details later. Right now you celebrate." Reed hung up and just stood there, letting the sun warm her face. She'd walked 4 miles in the rain. She'd been rejected for her appearance. She'd been told she wasn't professional enough, wasn't good enough, didn't meet standards. And then by sheer impossible luck, the person she'd helped had turned out to be her interviewer. Someone who'd seen past her appearance to what she'd done. Someone who'd given her a chance when everyone else had said no. Reed knew, with brutal clarity, how rare this was, how easily it could have been different. If Felix had been someone else, if he hadn't been her interviewer, if he hadn't felt compelled by guilt or fairness or whatever had motivated him to look past her appearance, most acts of kindness got nothing back. Most desperate people stayed desperate. Most times you helped someone, you got nothing but the knowledge you'd done the right thing. She'd gotten improbably lucky. The universe hadn't rewarded her kindness. Luck had, circumstance had. The sheer random chance that the person she'd helped was someone who could help her back, and she was going to take that luck and prove she deserved it. Reed took the bus home, paid the fare without having to count coins, and picked up Sadie from school. "Mama, why are you here, and why are you all wet?" "Something really good happened today, baby. Let's go home and I'll tell you everything." At their small apartment, Reed told Sadie the whole story while they shared the last box of mac and cheese. The man in the wheelchair, missing the bus, walking 4 miles, being rejected, discovering the man was her interviewer, getting hired anyway. Sadie listened with wide eyes. "Mama, that's like a movie, where something bad happens but then it gets all better. I know it sounds like that, baby, but I need you to understand something really important." Reed pulled Sadie close. "What happened today? Me helping that man, and then getting a job from him, that almost never happens. I got really lucky. Most people who help someone don't get anything back. They just help, and that's it.
Then why did you help him? Because he needed help, and I could give it. That's enough reason. We don't help people because we might get something back. We help because it's right. The lucky part, that's not why we do it. That's just a bonus when it happens, and it doesn't happen often. Sadie nodded seriously. But you got a bonus today. I got the biggest bonus of my life today, baby. And I'm grateful, but we can't count on bonuses. We can only count on doing the right thing, and working hard and hoping that's enough. That night, after Sadie was asleep, Reed sat at their kitchen table with the $100 Felix had given her. She made lists of what she needed: professional clothes that fit properly, comfortable shoes that wouldn't destroy her feet, a new portfolio, bus fare for the week. She'd need to be perfect on Monday. Couldn't give Felix any reason to regret taking a chance on her. Couldn't give anyone reason to say she didn't belong. Reed set her alarm for 5:30 Monday morning. She had 4 days to prepare for the most important trial of her life. She wasn't going to waste a single one of them. Monday morning, Reed arrived at 7:50, 40 minutes early. She wore a charcoal dress she'd found at Goodwill for $12, professional conservative, nothing flashy. New black flats from Payless, $23, cushioned insoles to prevent blisters. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, minimal makeup, a new portfolio, $8 at Office Depot, containing fresh printed resumes and a notebook for taking notes. She looked like someone who belonged in a professional office, like someone who deserved to be there. Judith met her at reception with an expression that was carefully neutral, professional distance replacing last week's obvious distaste. "Miss Trent, you're early." "I didn't want to risk being late." Something flickered in Judith's eyes, acknowledgement maybe, or reassessment. "Follow me." The building felt different now that Reed actually worked here. She noticed details she'd missed in her panic last week: the accessibility features built into every space, the way doorways were wider than standard, how all the art was positioned at wheelchair-accessible heights. This wasn't retrofitting. This was intentional design. Judith led her to a small office on the second floor, next to a larger corner office. "This is your workspace. Computer is set up. Password is on the sticky note. Change it immediately. Felix's calendar is in the shared system. His communication preferences and work protocols are in the employee handbook. Read it completely before he arrives at 8:30. Coffee specifications are on page 12. Do you have questions?" "About 1,000. Reed picked the most important. "What happened with the last 2 assistants? Specifically, what mistakes did they make that I should avoid?" Judith studied her for a moment, then closed the office door. "The first one couldn't handle the pace. She was competent but slow. Felix moves fast, thinks fast, decides fast, expects execution before he finishes explaining what he needs. She was always 3 steps behind, and she never caught up. He let her go after 3 weeks, and the second, she took everything personally. Felix has chronic pain from his spinal injury. Some days it's manageable, some days it's severe. On bad days, he's sharp-tongued and impatient. Not cruel, but not gentle." She interpreted his pain as judgment of her work. "She cried in the bathroom twice in 1 week. She quit after 5 days. Reed absorbed this. So I need to be fast, and I need to have thick skin. You need to be fast, and you need to understand that when Felix is difficult, it's not about you, it's about his situation." But Judith's voice sharpened. "That doesn't mean you accept disrespect. The second assistant made that mistake too. She thought she had to tolerate anything because he was in pain. That's not what he needs. He needs someone who pushes back when he's wrong, who maintains boundaries, who treats him like a person instead of a disability."
"Understood. Thank you for being honest. Don't make me regret helping you." Judith turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, I was wrong about you last week. I saw your appearance and assumed you weren't serious, weren't professional. That was unfair. You walked 4 miles in the rain to get here. That's more determination than most candidates show." After Judith left, Reed sat down at her desk and opened the employee handbook. 73 pages. She had 90 minutes before Felix arrived. She started reading with the focus of someone whose entire future depended on absorbing every detail. Felix Moore's communication preferences: direct, minimal small talk, bullet points over paragraphs, assumes context, unless you specify otherwise. Expected response time to emails within 2 hours during work hours, unless marked urgent respond immediately, or low priority end of day acceptable. Calendar color coding. Red, critical, cannot be moved. Yellow, important but flexible if necessary. Green, routine, can be rescheduled easily. Meeting preparation requirements. All materials printed and reviewed 24 hours in advance, participants notified 48 hours in advance, agenda distributed with meeting invitation. Coffee specifications. Dark roast, single shot of espresso added, 175 degrees. Use thermometer, specific ceramic mug marked with blue dot on bottom. Delivery time, 8:45. Not earlier. He's in initial review of overnight emails, not later. He has standing 9 o'clock calls. Read every page twice, taking notes, creating a reference sheet of critical details. By 8:25, she had the coffee ready, temperature checked 3 times, correct mug, placed on a small tray with a napkin. At 8:30 exactly, she heard the elevator. Heard the distinctive sound of electric wheelchair wheels on polished floors. Her heart started pounding. At 8:45, Reed carried the coffee upstairs. Felix's office door was open. He was at his desk, reading something on his screen with intense focus, his jaw tight with concentration. Reed knocked quietly on the doorframe. He looked up, his expression unreadable. "Miss Trent, good morning." "Good morning, Mr. Moore." Reed set the coffee down on his right side, exactly where the handbook specified. "Your 9 o'clock call with the development team is scheduled. Your 11 o'clock meeting with the board has materials prepared. I've printed copies for you to review. Your 2 o'clock physical therapy appointment is confirmed with transportation arranged." Felix picked up the coffee, took a sip, and something in his expression shifted slightly. Not quite approval, but acknowledgement. "Coffee is correct, thank you. Have you reviewed the board meeting materials yourself?" "Yes, sir. There are 3 agenda items: Q4 budget projections, new product launch timeline, and staffing expansion for the accessibility division." And Reed hesitated, unsure what he was asking. "And I've printed everything for your review." "And what's your assessment? Which items will generate the most discussion? Where are the potential conflicts?" Reed's mind raced. She'd read the materials, but she hadn't analyzed them strategically. Hadn't considered board dynamics or potential friction points. "I don't know enough about board dynamics yet to have an informed opinion." That's the correct answer. You don't guess when you don't know. You say you don't know and you commit to learning. Felix set down his coffee. "This week is training. You'll shadow me in every meeting. You'll take notes on who speaks, who challenges, who defers. You'll learn how this company operates. By Friday, I'll ask you that question again, and I'll expect an informed answer. Understood?" "Understood." "Good. Get your notebook. The 9 o'clock call starts in 12 minutes. You'll listen and observe. Don't speak unless I ask you a direct question." The first week was drinking from a fire hose. Reed sat in on 9 meetings, took 43 pages of notes, and learned more about more innovations in 5 days than she'd learned about Henderson Financial in 3 months. Felix ran every meeting with precise efficiency, clear objectives stated up front, time limits respected, decisions made without unnecessary discussion. He was demanding but not unreasonable, expected preparation but answered questions without condescension. And he was brilliant. Reed watched him take apart complex technical problems, identify solutions others had missed, synthesize information from multiple sources into clear decisions. His mind worked 3 steps ahead of everyone else in the room, and he expected people to keep up. On Tuesday, Reed made her first mistake. Felix asked her to reschedule his 3 o'clock meeting to accommodate a board member's conflict. Reed moved it to 4:30, without checking his physical therapy appointment at 4. The conflict didn't emerge until Felix reviewed his calendar at 2:45, and called her into his office with a voice that was very quiet and controlled. "Walk me through your thought process when you moved the 3 o'clock meeting." Reed's stomach dropped as she realized her error. "I looked at your calendar, saw open time at 4:30, and moved the meeting." "I didn't." She stopped, made herself say it. "I didn't check carefully enough. I missed the therapy appointment. I'm sorry." "Are you sorry you made the mistake, or sorry you got caught?" "Both. But mostly the first one. I should have been more careful." Felix studied her for a moment. "This is your first week. Mistakes are expected, but I need you to understand something. My therapy appointments are non-negotiable. They're marked red on my calendar for a reason. My recovery depends on consistency. Missing one appointment sets me back by days. Do you understand? Yes, sir. It won't happen again. It will happen again. Different mistake, but you'll make mistakes. What matters is whether you learn from them. He turned back to his computer. Fix the schedule. Find a time that actually works. And in the future, when you move something, check the entire day for conflicts, not just the time slot. Reed fixed it, moving the meeting to Thursday morning after confirming with all participants and triple-checking for conflicts. She created a new protocol for herself: never move anything without checking the full day. Never assume an open slot was actually open. On Wednesday, Felix had a bad pain day. Reed could see it the moment he arrived: the tightness in his shoulders, the careful way he moved, the lines around his mouth that weren't there yesterday. His coffee sat untouched. His morning greeting was clipped, almost curt. At 10:15, he called her into his office. The Henderson reference check. Where is it? On your desk, sir. Blue folder, left side. It's not there. Reed walked over and picked up the blue folder from exactly where she'd placed it. Right here, sir. Felix looked at the folder like it had personally offended him. Then he looked at her, and something complicated moved across his face: frustration and pain and what might have been embarrassment. Thank you. That's all. Reed left without commenting on his mistake, without offering sympathy or asking if he was okay. Judith's words echoed in her mind: treat him like a person, not a disability. At 11, Felix canceled his afternoon meetings with a terse message: medical issue, reschedule. Reed handled it efficiently, sending professional apologies without details, offering alternative times, maintaining relationships while protecting Felix's privacy. At 3:30 she heard a sound from his office. Low, pained, barely audible. She hesitated, then walked upstairs and knocked. What? The word was sharp. Do you need anything? Water, medication? Should I call anyone? I need you to do your job and leave me alone. Reed felt the words sting, but Judith's warning kept her voice steady. Your job description includes supporting you, which sometimes means checking if you need something. So I'm asking one more time, do you need anything? Silence, then quieter. There's medication in the locked drawer, right side of the desk. Code is 3728, white bottle, 2 pills. Reed found it, brought it with water, and set both on his desk without hovering. I'll hold all calls for the rest of the day unless marked urgent. Anything else? No. Thank you. His voice was tight but sincere. And Reed, yes, I'll apologize later. When I'm less, he gestured vaguely at himself. Less this, but I shouldn't have snapped at you. You were doing your job correctly. Apology accepted in advance. Take the medication and rest. On Thursday morning, there was a note on Reed's desk: thank you for handling yesterday professionally. That's exactly what I need from an assistant. FM. By Friday, Reed had a working understanding of Felix's patterns, his communication style, his expectations. She still made small mistakes, sent an email to the wrong distribution list, forgot to include an attachment, scheduled back-to-back meetings without transition time, but she caught most errors before they created problems, and she owned the ones she missed. Friday at 4:30, Felix called her into his office. First week assessment. Sit. Reed sat, her heart pounding. Your strengths. You're fast, you learn quickly, you take feedback without getting defensive. You made mistakes but you corrected them efficiently. You handled my bad day appropriately, didn't treat me like glass, didn't take it personally, but also didn't accept disrespect. That's rare. Reed felt something warm in her chest. Actual praise from Felix Moore. Your weaknesses: you're still learning the systems, so you're not anticipating needs yet, you're just reacting to requests. That will improve with time. You also hesitate before making decisions, which means you're being careful, but it slows you down. You need to develop confidence in your judgment. Understood. How do I improve? By making decisions and being wrong sometimes. I'd rather you make a mistake because you decided too quickly, than create delays because you're afraid to decide at all. Felix leaned back slightly. You survived week 1. That's more than the last 2 assistants accomplished. Next week, I'll start giving you more autonomy. You'll make decisions on scheduling conflicts, correspondence, routine matters. I'll check your work but I won't pre-approve everything. Think you can handle that? Yes sir. Good. See you Monday. 8:30 sharp. Week 2. Felix started testing her judgment. I have 2 meeting requests for Tuesday at 2. Board member Margaret Preston and a vendor presentation from Access Tech, both marked important. You decide which one gets the slot, and how to handle the conflict. Reed reviewed both requests carefully. Margaret Preston had been trying to schedule for 3 weeks, but the email didn't specify urgency. Access Tech was pitching new assistive technology that aligned directly with More Innovation's product roadmap. High relevance, limited window since their team was only in Jacksonville for 2 days. Reed scheduled Access Tech for Tuesday at 2 and offered Margaret 4 alternative times, with a note, Felix is very interested in discussing your proposals. These times would allow for a longer, more focused conversation without conflicts. Margaret responded immediately, Thursday at 10 works perfectly. Thank you for the thoughtful scheduling. When Felix reviewed her decision, he nodded. Good reasoning. You prioritize strategic fit and urgency over relationship management, but you maintain the relationship by offering better alternatives. That's correct thinking. Small wins like that built Reed's confidence. She started making more decisions without checking first, trusting her judgment, learning from the outcomes. But she also learned that Felix's standards were genuinely high, not impossibly high, but consistently demanding. He expected her to know things he hadn't explicitly told her, to anticipate needs he hadn't articulated, to understand context from minimal information. In week 3, he handed her a list of names with no context, schedule 30-minute introductory calls with each. This week if possible. Reed looked at the names, all venture capital firms and technology investors. No explanation of purpose, no background information, no guidance on talking points. She spent 20 minutes researching each firm before scheduling anything, then sent Felix a summary. These are all investors focused on accessibility technology and assistive devices. I've scheduled calls clustered on Thursday and Friday to minimize disruption to your other work. I've prepared one-page briefing sheets on each firm, their investment history, portfolio companies that compete with us, and recent news. Would you like me to prepare talking points, or an agenda? Felix responded, briefing sheets are excellent initiative. No agenda needed, these are exploratory. Well done. Reed was learning to think like Felix, to see patterns he saw, to understand what mattered and what didn't. It was exhausting, her brain hurt every night from the sheer mental effort of keeping up. But it was also exhilarating. She was good at this, actually good. In week 4, she made her first significant mistake. Felix had a standing meeting every Tuesday with his engineering lead, marked green on the calendar, routine, flexible. On Monday night, Reed got an email from a major potential client requesting a meeting Tuesday at 3, the exact time of the engineering meeting. The client was flying in from Seattle, only available Tuesday, represented a potential $5 million contract. Reed made the decision, moved the engineering meeting to Wednesday, scheduled the client meeting for Tuesday, sent confirmations to everyone. Tuesday morning at 8:45, Felix called her into his office with a voice that was dangerously quiet. Walk me through why you moved my engineering meeting without asking me. Reed's stomach dropped, but she kept her voice steady. The client request came late yesterday. $5 million potential contract. Only available Tuesday, time-sensitive opportunity. The engineering meeting is marked green, routine and flexible according to your calendar protocols. I made a judgment call to prioritize the high-value client meeting. And did you check with engineering to see if Wednesday works for them? Reed stopped. No. I assumed since it was routine, flexibility went both ways. That was wrong. Engineering has a production deadline Thursday. Tuesday is their critical check-in meeting before final implementation. Moving it to Wednesday cuts their buffer time in half. Wednesday doesn't work, Reed. It's not flexible this week. Reed felt her face get hot. I should have checked with them first. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix the problem. Now I have to choose between a $5 million client and disrupting my engineering team's critical timeline. Those are both bad options created by your decision to prioritize efficiency over thoroughness. Felix's voice wasn't angry, but it was firm. What should you have done differently?
I should have emailed or called engineering to confirm Wednesday worked before moving anything. Or I should have presented you with the conflict and asked you to decide. Correct on both counts. Green doesn't mean infinitely flexible. It means I'm willing to move it if necessary, but necessary requires checking. Always check with the people affected before making decisions that impact their work. Understood? Yes, sir. How do I fix this? You don't. I do. I'll handle it. Felix turned back to his computer. You're dismissed. Reed spent the rest of the day feeling like she'd swallowed broken glass. She'd been confident, maybe too confident, and she'd screwed up in a way that created real problems. Not a small administrative error, a strategic mistake that affected important relationships and business outcomes. At 5:30, Felix called her back to his office. Sit down. Reed sat, preparing for termination. End of trial period. She'd proven she couldn't handle the job. I fixed the scheduling conflict, Felix said. I moved my morning meetings earlier, gave engineering their Tuesday slot, kept the client meeting. It required rescheduling 4 other things and starting work at 7 instead of 8:30. That was inconvenient, but manageable. I'm very sorry. I'm not telling you this to make you feel worse. I'm telling you so you understand the downstream consequences of rushing a decision. One choice you made created 4 additional problems I had to solve. Felix leaned forward slightly. But Reed, this was a good mistake. Reed blinked. How is creating 4 problems a good mistake? Because you made a strategic decision based on business priorities. Your reasoning was sound. High-value client, time-sensitive opportunity, calendar showed flexibility. Your execution was flawed. You didn't verify your assumptions. But the thinking was right. That's what I need. I need someone who makes strategic decisions, even if they're sometimes wrong, rather than someone who never decides anything because they're afraid of making mistakes. So I'm not fired. Reed, you made a strategic mistake in week 4. If I fired people for single mistakes, I'd have no employees. You're not fired, you're learning. There's a difference. He paused. But learn from this. When you're making a decision that affects other people's work, check with them first. Always, even when you're confident you're right. Yes, sir. Thank you for the feedback. You're welcome. Now go home. Start fresh tomorrow. By week 8, Reed had found her rhythm. She understood Felix's patterns well enough to anticipate most of his needs before he articulated them. She knew which board members were challenging and which were supportive. She knew which vendors were reliable and which required close monitoring. She knew when to push back on his decisions and when to execute without question. She also understood that working for Felix meant being excellent, not perfect. He expected mistakes, but he expected learning. He expected initiative, even when it sometimes went wrong. He expected honesty about limitations rather than pretending competence she didn't have. In week 9, Felix started giving her broader responsibilities. We're launching a new product in Q1. I need a project timeline with milestones, dependencies and risk factors. Build it. No template, no previous examples, just the expectation that she'd figure it out. Reed spent 3 days researching project management methodologies, interviewing the engineering and marketing teams about their processes, building a comprehensive timeline in Excel. When she presented it to Felix, he studied it for maybe 90 seconds. This is good, comprehensive. But you've built in too much buffer time. Compress the timeline by 3 weeks. If I compress it that much, we lose flexibility if anything goes wrong. Correct. That's intentional. Tight timelines force discipline. Build the compressed version. Reed rebuilt it, feeling uncertain about the wisdom of eliminating buffer time but trusting that Felix knew what he was doing. When they reviewed it with the full team, the engineering lead pushed back. This timeline is aggressive. If anything goes wrong, then we'll address it, Felix said calmly. But if we build in excessive buffer, the project expands to fill the time. I'd rather have a challenging timeline that requires focus than a comfortable timeline that encourages complacency. The product launched on schedule with 1 week to spare. The tight timeline had indeed forced discipline, had eliminated unnecessary delays, had kept everyone focused. Felix had been right. Reed learned from that. Sometimes aggressive timelines created better outcomes than comfortable ones. Sometimes eliminating flexibility forced the right kind of problem solving. In week 10, Sadie got sick, really sick, fever of 103, vomiting, clearly needed to stay home from school. Reed called Felix at 6:30 in the morning. I need to work from home today. My daughter is sick, and I can't leave her with my neighbor in this condition. Understood. Forward me your cell number. I'll call if I need anything time sensitive, otherwise, handle what you can remotely. No guilt trip, no questions about whether it was really necessary, just accommodation. Reed worked from her kitchen table with Sadie on the couch nearby, managed Felix's schedule remotely, handled emails, coordinated meetings via phone. At 2 o'clock, Felix called. How's your daughter? Fever broke an hour ago. She's sleeping now. Should be fine by tomorrow. Good. Take tomorrow off too if you need it. Sick kids need their parents, and you can't do your job effectively if you're worried about her. I can work tomorrow. Reed, take tomorrow off if you need it. That's not a request. Your job is demanding enough when you're fully focused. Don't split your attention between work and a sick child. It's not good for either. The casual kindness of it, the recognition that she was a parent first and an employee second, made Reed's throat tight. Thank you. I'll see how she is tomorrow morning and let you know. Perfect. Tell Sadie I hope she feels better soon. Sadie recovered quickly, and Reed was back in the office Thursday, but she noticed something had shifted in how she thought about the job. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was a place where she was valued, where her work mattered, where her circumstances as a single mother were accommodated rather than held against her. That didn't make the work easier. Felix was still demanding. The pace was still relentless, but it made the work feel worthwhile in ways that went beyond just the paycheck. Week 12 arrived, end of the trial period. Reed had been thinking about this moment for weeks, anxiety building as the deadline approached. She'd proven she could do the job. She knew she had. She'd made mistakes but learned from them. She'd developed genuine competence at managing Felix's complex schedule and business needs. But Felix's standards were high, and she wasn't sure if good enough would be sufficient for permanent status. Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, Felix called her into his office. Trial period assessment. Sit. Reed sat, her heart pounding, hands clenched in her lap. 12 weeks ago I hired you on a trial basis because you demonstrated character and determination. I didn't know if you could do the job. You had no relevant experience with technology companies, no executive assistant credentials, significant gaps in your resume. You were a risk. Reed's chest tightened. Past tense. Was this termination? You made mistakes in these 12 weeks. You scheduled conflicts. You made assumptions without verifying. You occasionally prioritized wrong. But you also learned from every mistake. You developed judgment and strategic thinking. You learned to anticipate my needs instead of just reacting to requests. You earned the trust I placed in you. Felix pulled out a folder, slid it across the desk. This is your permanent employment contract. Salary increases to $52,000 annually, with a performance review at 6 months that will determine raise eligibility. Full benefits starting immediately, including health insurance, retirement matching, and child care assistance of up to $300 per month. 2 weeks paid vacation, sick leave as needed. Standard employment terms with one addition. What addition? I've added a professional development budget. $2,000 annually for courses, training, certifications, anything that improves your skills and value to the company. You don't have a degree. That limits your career trajectory unless you choose to pursue additional education. This budget supports that if you want it, but it's not required. Your choice how you use it. Reed stared at the folder, unable to process what she was hearing. You're making me permanent. I'm offering permanent status. You still have to sign the contract and agree to the terms. Yes, of course I agree. Reed opened the folder with shaking hands, scanned the contract. Everything he'd said was there, plus language about performance reviews, termination clauses, standard legal protections. This is thank you so much. Don't thank me. You earned this. You've proven you can handle the job, you can handle me on my bad days, and you can grow into responsibilities beyond basic administrative work. That's what I needed. That's what you delivered. Felix leaned back slightly, his expression serious. But I need you to understand something, Reed. This job will continue to be demanding. My standards won't lower. As you get better, I'll expect more. The trajectory from here is more responsibility, more complexity, more strategic work. If you want to stay at this level, competent executive assistant, no growth beyond that, this job isn't right for you long term. I need someone who wants to develop, who wants bigger challenges. Is that you? Reed thought about the professional development budget, about Felix's expectation of growth, about the possibility of becoming more than just an assistant. Yes, that's me. I want to grow. I want to take on more. Good. Then let's be clear about trajectory. In 6 months I'll start giving you operational oversight, managing vendors, coordinating between departments, representing me in lower-level meetings. In a year, if you're performing well, we'll discuss a promotion to operations coordinator with corresponding salary increase. In 2 years, potentially a management role if you've demonstrated capability. But all of that requires you to keep learning, keep developing, keep pushing yourself. Are you willing to do that? Yes, absolutely. Then welcome to More Innovations officially. Felix almost smiled. Now get out of my office. It's Friday afternoon. Go home to your daughter. Celebrate the weekend. Reed stood, contract clutched in her hands, and turned to leave. Reed, she stopped. Yes, that morning in the rain, when you stopped to help me, I was having one of the worst days of my recovery. I'd just come from a doctor's appointment, where they told me my progress had plateaued, that I should accept permanent wheelchair use, and stop hoping for more improvement. I was angry at the world, at my body, at everything. And then my wheelchair got stuck, and I couldn't even handle a simple sidewalk problem, and it felt like confirmation that I was helpless, that I'd lost everything that mattered. Felix's voice was quiet, reflective. Then you appeared and helped me, without hesitation, without pity, just saw a problem and fixed it. And when I thanked you, you just said you're welcome and ran off to catch your bus, like helping someone was the most normal thing in the world. Not a big deal. Not something that required endless gratitude, just normal human decency. He looked at her directly. That stayed with me all morning. When you showed up here looking like you'd been through hell, and Judith told me you'd walked 4 miles after missing your bus, I realized you'd missed that bus helping me. You'd sacrificed something that mattered because I needed help. That's rare, Reed. That's character. That's why I gave you this chance, and you've proven I was right to do it. Reed felt her throat get tight. I'm glad I stopped, even before I knew it was you. I'm glad I stopped, so am I. Now go. See you Monday. Reed took Sadie out for dinner that night. Real dinner at a sit-down restaurant, not fast food or frozen pizza. They sat in a booth with red vinyl seats, and Reed told her daughter everything while they shared chicken tenders and French fries. So you have the job for real now. Not just trial. For real, baby. I'm permanent, and Mr. Moore is going to help me take classes, help me develop my skills so I can grow in my career. Sadie beamed. Mama, I'm so proud of you. You worked so hard. I got lucky, baby. I helped the right person at the right time. If Mr. Moore had been someone else.
But you still did good work after that, right? He didn't keep you just because you helped him. He kept you because you're good at your job. Reed pulled her daughter close, overwhelmed by how wise this 7-year-old was. You're right, I got lucky with the opportunity, but I earned keeping it. Those are both true. That night, after Sadie was asleep, Reed sat at their kitchen table and thought about the past 12 weeks. About the morning in the rain when she'd made a choice that changed everything. About walking 4 miles and being rejected for her appearance. About Felix giving her a chance despite every reason not to. And about the work she'd done since then, the mistakes and learning, the long hours and hard days, the genuine competence she'd developed through effort and determination. She'd gotten impossibly lucky. The universe hadn't rewarded her kindness. Pure random chance had. If Felix had been someone else, if he hadn't been her interviewer, if he'd been less inclined to look past her appearance, she'd still be unemployed and desperate. That luck had opened the door. But she'd walked through it herself. She'd proven she deserved the opportunity by working harder than she'd ever worked, by learning faster than she'd thought possible, by developing skills she hadn't known she could develop. Both things were true. The luck and the earning, the chance and the proving. Reed pulled out the professional development budget information and started researching online business courses. She didn't need a full degree that would take years and more money than she had, but she could take courses in project management, operations, business administration. She could build skills that made her more valuable, that opened doors beyond executive assistant. She could grow, actually grow, not just survive. For the first time in years since before her mother got sick, since before Sadie was born, since before everything fell apart, Reed let herself think about a future that was bigger than just getting through today. Maybe she could go back to school eventually. Maybe she could finish the degree she'd started 10 years ago. Maybe she could become operations coordinator, then manager, then director. Maybe she could build a real career, not just hold a job. Maybe the impossible luck that had opened this door could be the foundation for something she built herself, something that belonged to her because she'd earned it. Reed went to bed that night feeling something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. Real hope, grounded in reality rather than desperate fantasy. Monday morning she arrived at 7:50 as usual, ready for week 13, ready for whatever came next. 6 months into permanent status, Reed had become genuinely indispensable. She managed Felix's schedule with the precision of air traffic control, juggling board meetings, investor calls, product development reviews, therapy appointments, and the dozen small crises that emerged daily. She'd learned to read his moods, anticipate his needs, solve problems before they required his attention. But more importantly, Felix had started trusting her with operational decisions. The engineering team needs to hire 3 new developers, he told her one morning in March. I don't have bandwidth to manage the hiring process. You're going to coordinate it. I don't know anything about hiring engineers. You know how to coordinate people and manage timelines. That's what hiring is, logistics and judgment. Work with the engineering lead on requirements, then own the process. Screen resumes, schedule interviews, coordinate between candidates and team members. Keep everything moving. Think you can handle it. Reed thought about the 12-week trial period, about mistakes and learning, about Felix's expectation that she'd grow into challenges rather than shy away from them. Yes, I can handle it. She spent the next 6 weeks learning more about software engineering than she'd ever imagined. Not enough to code herself, but enough to understand what the team needed, what questions to ask candidates, how to evaluate technical skills she didn't personally possess. She coordinated 17 interviews, managed scheduling conflicts across multiple time zones, kept candidates engaged through a multi-week process. They hired 3 excellent developers, all of whom started within a 6-week window, staggered to allow proper onboarding. The engineering lead told Felix Reed ran this better than our last 3 hiring processes combined. She kept everyone on schedule, maintained candidate relationships, and didn't waste our time with unqualified people. We should have her coordinate all future hiring. Felix forwarded the email to Reed with a single line, "Well done. This is the growth I expected." That kind of work became her new normal. Felix gave her projects that required coordination, judgment, strategic thinking, vendor negotiations, event planning, process improvements, cross-departmental initiatives. Work that stretched her capabilities but that she learned to handle through careful research and meticulous execution. In April, Felix called her into his office with a folder, performance review. 6 months since you went permanent. Sit. Reed sat, familiar anxiety returning despite knowing her work had been strong. 6 months ago, I offered you permanent status. You've exceeded expectations in that time. You've developed operational capabilities I didn't anticipate. You're handling complex projects with minimal oversight. Your judgment has matured significantly. You make good strategic decisions more often than not. Felix slid the folder across. Salary increase to $58,000, effective immediately. Promotion to operations coordinator with expanded responsibilities. New title, new job description, increase in decision-making authority. Reed opened the folder, read the new job description. Operational oversight, vendor management, cross-functional coordination, project management, hiring support, strategic planning assistance. It was everything she'd been doing, plus more. Now official. You're promoting me. I'm recognizing what you're already doing and compensating you appropriately for it. The work doesn't change much. You've been operating at this level for weeks. The title and salary now match the reality. Felix leaned forward. But Reed, understand what this means. You're no longer just my assistant, you're operations staff. You'll start having direct reports soon. When we hire an executive assistant to replace you at that level, they'll report to you. You'll be responsible for their work and development. That's management. Are you ready for that? Reed thought about Judith's initial warnings, about the 2 assistants who'd quit, about how far she'd come from the desperate woman who'd walked 4 miles in the rain. Yes, I'm ready. Good. Your first management task. Hire your replacement. We need an executive assistant to handle my calendar and daily logistics so you can focus on operational work. You'll screen candidates, conduct interviews, make the hiring decision. I'll meet your final choice to confirm, but the decision is yours. That's what managers do. They build teams. Over the next month, Reed lived both sides of the hiring process. She posted the job, reviewed 63 applications, and was struck by how many looked like her resume had looked 9 months ago. Gaps in work history, no perfect credentials, life circumstances that created complications. She brought in 5 candidates for interviews. 4 were perfectly qualified. Solid resumes, good experience, professional presentation. The 5th was a 24-year-old named Jamie Rodriguez who had a 2-year gap caring for her younger siblings after their mother died. No executive assistant experience, and an earnestness that reminded Reed painfully of herself. I know I don't have traditional experience, Jamie said during her interview, but I managed my family's household, coordinated with 3 different schools, handled budgets on almost no money, kept complex schedules organized while working part-time. I learned to be organized, to anticipate problems, to stay calm in crises. I think those skills translate, even if they weren't learned in an office. Reed asked her the hard questions about time management, about handling difficult personalities, about working for someone demanding with high standards. Jamie answered honestly, acknowledged her limitations, but communicated clearly that she was willing to learn, willing to work hard, willing to prove herself if given the chance. She hired her. When she told Felix her decision, he reviewed Jamie's resume and raised an eyebrow. She has no relevant experience. The other candidates were more qualified on paper. She has no office experience, but she has skills that matter: organization under pressure, problem solving, empathy without pity. She reminds me of someone else who had no relevant experience but turned out to be good at the job anyway. Felix almost smiled. Are you comparing yourself to your hiring decision? I'm saying that sometimes the best person isn't the one with the perfect resume. Sometimes it's the person who'll work hardest to prove they deserve the chance. You took a risk on me. I'm taking one on Jamie. Your decision, your responsibility. If it works out, you get credit. If it doesn't, you handle the consequences. That's management. Jamie started 2 weeks later. Reed trained her the way she'd wished someone had trained her. Thoroughly, patiently, with clear expectations but also understanding that mistakes were part of learning. She taught her Felix's systems, his communication preferences, his patterns and rhythms. She told her about the bad pain days, about not taking things personally, about maintaining boundaries while still providing support. Mr. Moore is demanding, she told Jamie during her 2nd week. You're going to make mistakes and he's going to correct you directly. That's not personal judgment, that's him expecting excellence and telling you when you're not delivering. Learn from it, don't internalize it. Like you did, like I learned to do. I internalized everything at first, made myself miserable worrying I'd get fired over small mistakes. Then I realized Felix respects people who try hard and learn more than people who are perfect and stagnant. So I stopped trying to be perfect and started trying to get better. That's what you need to do too. Jamie absorbed everything like a sponge, took detailed notes, asked good questions. By week 4 she was handling Felix's calendar with competence. By week 8 she was anticipating needs. By week 12, Reed felt comfortable stepping back and letting Jamie own the executive assistant role while she focused on operations. She'd built something. She'd hired well, trained effectively, created space for someone else to succeed. That felt significant in ways beyond just work accomplishment. 15 months after the morning in the rain, June of the following year, More Innovations secured major funding from a venture capital firm. $15 million to expand operations, develop new products, grow the team. The company was scaling rapidly from 32 people to projected growth of 100 within 18 months, and that meant organizational chaos. Felix called Reed into his office with a problem.
We're going to triple in size over the next year and a half. Right now everyone knows everyone, communication is easy, processes are minimal. At 100 people that doesn't work. We need real structure, real operations infrastructure, real HR and systems and policies. Are you hiring an operations director? No. I'm promoting you to operations director. Reed felt her breath catch. Felix, I've been operations coordinator for 8 months. I don't have experience running operations for a company this size. No one has experience until they do it the first time. You've proven you can learn, can manage complexity, can build systems that work. That's what this role requires. Felix slid a folder across. New title, new responsibilities, new salary, $70,000. You'll oversee all operational functions, HR, facilities, vendor management, process design, compliance. You'll have 3 direct reports initially, more as we grow. You'll build the infrastructure that lets us scale without falling apart. Reed opened the folder, scanned the job description. It was massive, overwhelming, far beyond anything she'd done before. I don't know if I can do this, neither do I. But I know you'll work harder than anyone else to figure it out. And I know you'll ask for help when you need it instead of pretending you know things you don't. That's enough. Felix's voice was serious. Reed, 15 months ago you walked into this building soaking wet and desperate, and I took a chance on you. You've proven that chance was right every single day since then. Now I'm taking another chance that you can grow from coordinator to director, that you can learn what you don't know, that you can build something significant. Are you willing to try? Reed thought about Sadie, about stability, about the apartment they could now comfortably afford, about the savings account that actually had money in it. She thought about the scared woman who'd walked 4 miles in the rain, about how far she'd come, about the growth Felix had pushed her toward consistently. Yes, she said, I'm willing to try. Good. You start immediately. First task, hire an operations coordinator to backfill your current role. Second task, build a 90-day plan for scaling our operations infrastructure. Third task, don't drive yourself crazy trying to be perfect. Build something good enough, then iterate and improve. That's how scaling works. Over the next 3 months, Reed learned what it meant to be genuinely in over her head. She was building HR systems for a tech company with no HR background. She was designing processes for scaling that she'd never designed before. She was managing people who had more experience than she did in their specific domains. She made mistakes, significant ones. She designed a performance review system that was too complicated, took too much time, and generated complaints from managers who couldn't figure out the rating scales. She had to scrap it and build something simpler. She hired an HR generalist who turned out to be terrible at the job, great interview, terrible execution, and had to fire someone for the first time in her life. That was brutal, but necessary. She created a vendor management process that added unnecessary bureaucracy and slowed down simple purchases. She had to revise it after getting feedback from frustrated team leads. But she also built things that worked. She created an onboarding system that got new hires productive faster. She designed space planning that accommodated growth without requiring immediate office moves. She established vendor relationships that saved the company money while improving service. She built a benefits package that was competitive with much larger companies. She learned constantly, frantically, desperately. She read books on operations management, took online courses using her professional development budget, talked to operations directors at other companies, asked Felix endless questions about what mattered most. And slowly, painfully, she developed genuine competence. Not expertise that would take years, but solid capability. She could run operations for a mid-sized tech company. She could build systems, manage people, make strategic decisions about organizational infrastructure. By December, 21 months after the rain, More Innovations had grown to 78 people. They'd launched 2 new products, revenue had doubled, and the operations infrastructure Reed had built was holding up under the strain, not perfectly, but adequately, good enough to support growth without collapsing. At the holiday party, Margaret Preston, the board member and venture capital investor, pulled Reed aside. I've been watching what you've built here, the operations systems, the HR infrastructure, the scalability planning. It's impressive work, especially for someone with no formal background in operations. Thank you. I've learned a lot, mostly through mistakes. Margaret smiled. The best learning comes from mistakes. Felix told me your story, how you started here, how you've grown, how far you've come in less than 2 years. It's remarkable. You should be proud of what you've accomplished. I got lucky. I helped Felix at the right moment, and he gave me a chance when no one else would. You got lucky with the opportunity. But everything after that, that was you. That was work and learning and determination. Don't discount what you've built by attributing it all to luck. Margaret handed Reed a business card. If you ever decide More Innovations isn't your long-term home, call me. Preston Ventures is always looking for operational talent, and someone who can build infrastructure from nothing is valuable anywhere. Reed took the card, surprised and flattered. Thank you, but I'm happy here. Felix has invested in my development more than any other employer would have. I'm not going anywhere. Loyalty is admirable. Just know you have options. You've proven your capability. Don't let anyone make you think you're only successful because someone gave you charity. You've earned everything you have. That night, Reed went home and told Sadie about the conversation while they made dinner together. Real cooking now, not just pasta or frozen meals. They had a kitchen that was stocked, bills that were paid, stability that felt almost unbelievable. Mama, are you going to leave your job, go work for that other lady? No baby, I'm happy where I am. Mr. Moore has helped me learn and grow more than I could have anywhere else. I'm not leaving. Good. I like Mr. Moore. He's nice to you, even when he's grumpy. Reed laughed. Yeah, he is. Even when he's grumpy. Mama, can I ask you something? Always. Do you think you would have gotten this job if you hadn't helped Mr. Moore that day? If he wasn't the person interviewing you? Reed thought about the question carefully, wanting to give Sadie an honest answer. No, I don't think I would have. I think any other interviewer would have seen me show up late and soaking wet and rejected me immediately. I got incredibly lucky that the person I helped was someone who was willing to look past my appearance and give me a chance. But you still did good work after that, right? You kept the job because you were good at it. Yes, the luck got me in the door. The work kept me there. Both things are true. I got lucky and I earned what I have. Those aren't contradictory, they're both real. Sadie nodded thoughtfully. I'm glad you helped him. Even if he wasn't your interviewer, I'm glad you helped him, because that's who you are. You help people. Reed pulled her daughter close, overwhelmed by love and gratitude. You're pretty wise for an 8-year-old, you know that. I get it from you, Mama. 2 years after the morning in the rain, Reed sat in Felix's office discussing a problem that had been building for months. More Innovations had grown to 112 people. Revenue was approaching $20 million annually. The company was successful by any measure, but success brought scrutiny. The board wants to bring in a professional COO, Felix said bluntly. Someone with traditional credentials, MBA from a top school, 10+ years of experience at successful tech companies. They think we've outgrown homegrown operations leadership. Reed felt something cold in her chest. They want to replace me. They want to bring in someone above you. You'd report to the COO instead of to me. You'd keep the operations director title but lose strategic authority. Felix's jaw was tight. I've been fighting it for 3 months, but the pressure is increasing. Margaret and 2 other board members think we need professional management for the next growth stage. Do you agree with them? Felix was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, I don't know. You've done excellent work building our operations from nothing, but we're entering territory where experience matters. We're negotiating enterprise contracts, managing complex compliance requirements, dealing with institutional investors who expect a certain level of operational sophistication. I don't know if you have the background to navigate that successfully. The words hurt, but Reed forced herself to hear them objectively. You're right. I don't have that background. I've learned everything on the job, which means I have gaps. Significant gaps. That doesn't mean you're not valuable. It means we might need different capabilities for this stage. Reed thought about Margaret's business card, still in her desk drawer, about options, about pride and practicality. What do you want me to do? I want you to tell me whether you want to fight for this or transition gracefully. If you want to stay as operations director reporting to a COO, I'll support that. If you want to transition to a different role, maybe program management or strategic projects, we can create something that fits your strengths. Or if you want to leave, I'll give you a reference that opens any door you want. Your choice. Reed went home that night and didn't tell Sadie immediately. She sat at the kitchen table, wrestling with pride and fear and pragmatism. She'd worked harder than she'd ever worked to get here. She'd learned, grown, proven herself repeatedly. But she also knew her limitations. She didn't have an MBA. She didn't have 10 years of experience. She'd built operations for a 30-person startup scaling to 100 plus. But scaling from 100 to 500, that required expertise she genuinely didn't have. The question was whether she wanted to acquire that expertise or acknowledge her ceiling had been reached. Reed pulled out her laptop and spent 3 hours researching executive MBA programs, part-time options, online options, programs designed for working professionals who wanted to fill experience gaps while maintaining their careers. It would take 3 years part-time. It would cost $40,000, even with company support. It would mean school on weekends, homework after Sadie went to bed, constant balancing of work and study. But it would give her the credentials the board wanted. More importantly, it would give her the knowledge those credentials represented: finance, strategy, organizational development, leadership theory, things she'd been learning on the fly but that formal education would systematize and deepen. Monday morning, Reed walked into Felix's office with a proposal. I want to keep my role, but I also want to acknowledge the board's concerns are valid. I don't have traditional credentials or deep experience. So here's what I propose. Give me 24 months. I'll enroll in an executive MBA program. I've already identified 3 that fit my schedule and budget. I'll use that time to fill knowledge gaps while continuing to perform my current role. At the end of 2 years we'll reassess. If the board still wants to bring in a COO, I'll transition without fight. But give me a chance to develop the capabilities they're concerned I'm missing. Felix studied her for a long moment. That's ambitious. You're already working 50-hour weeks. Adding business school on top of that is necessary if I want to keep growing. You told me 2 years ago that this job required someone who wanted development, who wanted bigger challenges. This is me taking that seriously. I'm not content to plateau at operations director. I want to learn what I don't know. I want to earn the role I'm in, not just occupy it because you gave me a chance. What about Sadie? You're a single parent. Adding school. Sadie is 8 now. She understands that mama needs to study sometimes. We'll manage. We've managed everything else. Reed leaned forward. Felix, I'm not asking for charity or special accommodation. I'm asking for time to prove I can develop the capabilities required. That's fair to everyone. The board, the company and me. Felix was quiet, then nodded slowly. I'll present it to the board. I can't promise they'll agree, but I'll advocate for giving you the chance. On one condition. What condition? If at any point the schoolwork is compromising your job performance, we revisit immediately. I won't let the company suffer while you're developing yourself. Your work quality has to stay high. Can you commit to that? Yes. If I can't maintain performance, I'll withdraw from school or transition roles. I'm not asking to stay in a position I can't handle. Then I'll fight for you. Again, the board agreed reluctantly to give Reed 24 months, but they also made clear this was her last extension. Either she developed the capabilities they needed or they were bringing in outside leadership.
Reed enrolled in the University of Florida's Executive MBA program, a 3-year part-time program designed for working professionals. Classes every other weekend, intensive online coursework, group projects with other mid-career students. The first semester was brutal. Reed was working 50-hour weeks running operations for a 100-plus person company while taking 2 graduate courses and raising an 8-year-old daughter. She studied after Sadie went to bed, did homework on Sunday afternoons, wrote papers at 5 in the morning before work. She was exhausted constantly. Her margin for error disappeared. Small problems at work became significant because she had no buffer time to address them proactively. In October, 3 months into the program, Reed made a costly mistake. She approved a vendor contract without reviewing the cancellation terms carefully. When the company needed to switch vendors 2 months later due to service problems, they discovered a 6-month cancellation penalty of $15,000. Money they now had to pay because Reed hadn't done adequate due diligence. Felix called her into his office with an expression that was very serious. Walk me through your approval process for the vendor contract. Reed felt her stomach drop as she realized what had happened. I reviewed the pricing and service terms but didn't read the cancellation clause carefully. I should have. That was sloppy work. Why was it sloppy? Because I was rushed. I had 3 contracts to review that day, I had a paper due for school that night, and I didn't take the time to be thorough. That's not an excuse, it's just the reality. I messed up. Felix leaned back, studying her. We agreed that if school was compromising your work performance, we'd revisit. This is a $15,000 mistake caused by insufficient attention to detail. That's compromised performance. Reed felt fear spike through her exhaustion. Are you pulling your support for the MBA? I'm asking whether you can actually do both. Honestly, can you maintain the work quality this role requires while handling business school? Because if you can't, you need to choose the job or the degree. You can't do both poorly. Reed wanted to argue, to insist she could handle it, to promise it wouldn't happen again. But Felix had taught her the value of honesty over false assurances. I don't know. Right now I'm struggling to do both well. I'm stretched too thin, but I also don't want to quit school 3 months in, and I don't want to quit this job after working so hard to earn it. Then something has to change. What are your options? Reed thought for a moment. I could reduce my course load, take 1 class per semester instead of 2. That would make the degree take longer, but it would free up time to focus on work quality. How much longer? Probably 4 to 5 years total instead of 3. The board gave you 24 months. That doesn't work. Then I need to get better at time management. I need to be more strategic about when I do schoolwork versus when I focus on work. I need to read stopped. I need help. I need to delegate more at work. I hired an operations coordinator to backfill my old role, but I've been doing too much myself instead of letting them own things. I need to actually manage, not just do everything. Felix nodded slowly. That's correct thinking. You're operating like an individual contributor instead of a director. You're doing work instead of leading work. That's inefficient, and it's preventing you from focusing on strategic issues that actually require your attention. So you're not firing me. I'm telling you that you need to work differently, not just harder. You need to trust your team, delegate more effectively, and focus your energy on high-value activities, the things only you can do. If you can't figure out how to do that, then yes, this role isn't sustainable. But I think you can figure it out. I'm giving you 2 months to prove it. Reed spent the next 8 weeks completely restructuring how she worked. She identified every task she was doing that could be delegated. She trained her operations coordinator to own vendor relationships, to review contracts, to manage day-to-day operational issues. She built systems that allowed decisions to happen without her direct involvement. She learned to manage through others instead of doing everything herself. It was uncomfortable. She was used to being the person who executed, who made things happen through her own effort. Learning to let go, to trust others to do work that she could probably do faster herself, felt risky, felt like she was losing control, but it also worked. Within 6 weeks, she'd freed up 12 hours per week that had been consumed by tasks others could handle. She focused that time on strategic work, designing systems, solving complex problems, studying for school. Her work quality improved, her schoolwork improved. She was still exhausted, but it was sustainable exhaustion instead of drowning exhaustion. By December, Felix's 2-month evaluation deadline, Reed had righted the ship. No major mistakes, strong performance, clear delegation, effective leadership. Felix called her in for assessment. Better, much better. You're working like a director now instead of a coordinator. Your team is performing well. Your strategic thinking has improved. The work quality is back to acceptable standards. Thank you. I appreciate your patience while I figured it out. I wasn't being patient, I was holding you accountable. There's a difference. You needed to solve the problem, and you did. That's what I expected. Felix paused. How's school? Hard, but manageable now that I'm working more efficiently. I'm learning a lot: finance, strategy, organizational theory. It's giving me frameworks for things I've been doing instinctively, making me more effective. Good, keep it up. The board is watching. They want to see progress, want to see that their extension was justified. Don't give them reasons to doubt the decision. Reed kept working, kept studying, kept pushing. The next 5 semesters were grueling but manageable. She learned financial analysis and applied it to vendor contracts, saving the company significant money. She learned organizational design theory and restructured operations to be more efficient. She learned strategic planning frameworks and used them to build better long-term operational roadmaps, and she proved, semester by semester, that she could develop the capabilities the board had worried she lacked. 24 months after the board's ultimatum, 4 years after the morning in the rain, Reed had completed 2/3 of her MBA program. She'd maintained strong performance at work. She'd grown her capabilities demonstrably. Felix scheduled a board presentation for her to demonstrate progress. Reed stood in front of 7 powerful people: Margaret Preston, other investors, independent board members, and presented what she'd accomplished and learned. She walked through operational improvements, cost savings, efficiency gains. She explained how her coursework had informed her work, how academic frameworks had enhanced practical execution. She was nervous but competent, prepared but authentic. This was who she was now, someone who could stand in front of a board and defend her value, articulate her capabilities, prove she deserved to be there. When she finished, Margaret asked the critical question: "You've demonstrated progress, but do you have the experience and knowledge to lead operations through our next growth phase? To scale from 100 people to 300, to manage complex enterprise relationships and institutional requirements?" Reed took a breath. "Honestly, not yet. I'm developing those capabilities, but I'm not at full competence. What I do have is a track record of learning quickly, of building systems that work, of growing into challenges that initially felt beyond my reach. I've built operations from 30 people to 100 plus. I can learn to scale from 100 to 300. It will require continued development, continued learning, but I believe I can do it." Another board member spoke up. "What if we brought in a COO with traditional credentials, someone with MBA, 10 years of experience, proven track record at larger companies? Wouldn't that be less risky than betting on your continued development?" "It would be less risky in terms of credentials, but it would also mean losing institutional knowledge, disrupting relationships I've built with our vendors and partners, and bringing in someone who'd need 6 months to learn what I already know about this company." Reed met his eyes directly. "I'm not claiming I'm the only person who could do this job. I'm claiming I've earned the chance to keep growing into it. Felix took a risk on me 4 years ago when I had no qualifications. I've proven that risk was justified. I'm asking the board to take one more risk, that I'll continue proving myself over the next year as I complete my MBA and develop the remaining capabilities I need." The board members exchanged looks. Margaret spoke carefully. "We'll discuss and provide a decision within 1 week. Thank you for your presentation, Reed." It was strong work. Reed left the boardroom, her hands shaking with adrenaline, and returned to her office. She'd done everything she could. The decision was out of her hands now. 5 days later, Felix called her to his office. The board voted 4-3. "You can stay." Reed felt relief crash through her. 4-3. That's close. Very close. Margaret advocated strongly for you. 1 other member was convinced by your presentation, but 3 voted to bring in outside leadership. They still don't believe you can scale with the company. Felix's expression was serious. "This is your last extension, Reed. If you can't demonstrate full capability by the time you complete your MBA, they won't give you another chance." "Understood. Understood. Thank you for supporting me. Again, I supported you because you earned it. Don't make me regret that decision." "I won't." The final year of Reed's MBA program, the company scaled aggressively. By the time she walked across the stage to receive her degree in May, More Innovations had grown to 157 people. Revenue exceeded $40 million. They were no longer a startup. They were a legitimate, mid-sized technology company. And Reed had scaled with them. She'd built HR infrastructure, compliance systems, vendor management frameworks, financial controls, operational processes that supported growth without collapsing. She'd hired her replacement as operations director and been promoted to VP of operations, overseeing a team of 7 people who managed different operational functions. She'd also completed her executive MBA with a 3.6 GPA while working full-time and raising a daughter who was now 11 years old and already talking about college. At the graduation ceremony, Felix and Sadie both attended. Afterward, as they stood in the sunshine with Reed in cap and gown, Felix handed her an envelope. "Congratulations, you've earned this multiple times over." Inside was a promotion letter: Chief Operating Officer, effective immediately. Salary,
$130,000 annually. Direct report to CEO, seat at executive leadership team, comprehensive benefits. Reed stared at the letter, unable to process what she was reading. You're making me COO, the board approved it last week. You've completed your MBA, you've demonstrated operational capability at scale. You've built infrastructure that works. You've earned the role they weren't sure you could grow into. Felix's voice was matter of fact. This isn't charity, Reed. This isn't me giving you something you don't deserve. This is recognition of 5 years of exceptional work and extraordinary growth. You've proven everyone wrong who doubted you could do this, including occasionally yourself. Sadie threw her arms around Reed. Mama, you're a COO. Do you know how cool that is? Reed laughed through tears. I'm still figuring out what it means, baby. It means you're one of the bosses. It means you worked really hard, and people saw it and recognized it. It means you're successful. That night, after the celebration dinner, after Sadie was asleep, Reed sat at her kitchen table and thought about the journey that had brought her here. 5 years ago, she'd been unemployed and desperate, walking 4 miles in the rain, being rejected for her appearance. She'd helped a stranger and gotten impossibly lucky that the stranger was someone who could help her back. But everything after that moment, every promotion, every responsibility, every achievement, that hadn't been luck, that had been work. Grinding, exhausting, relentless work, learning and mistakes and growth and determination. She'd earned this, actually earned it, through capability developed over years of effort. The luck had opened the door, but she'd built the room on the other side herself, brick by brick, skill by skill, mistake by corrected mistake. Reed pulled out the business card Margaret Preston had given her 3 years ago. She'd kept it, a reminder that she had options, that she'd proven her value beyond one company. But she didn't need it anymore. She wasn't staying at More Innovations because it was her only option. She was staying because it was where she wanted to be, where she'd built something significant, where she'd grown from desperate assistant to C-level executive. This was her career now, her success, her achievement, not a gift, not charity, not luck that hadn't run out yet. Earned.